Today's topic being natural light. It's a challenge and it's an opportunity. And I think all the panelists here, all four of them, have mastered the art of using natural light in their projects, and not just, I think, finding it, and I think they've summoned the challenges and gone beyond that and created some masterpiece work. So I think it's best to know from them and hear from them what they feel about it and how much of a challenge or a opportunity they find using natural light into their work. Natural light, like we know, is like daylighting. It's a technique that efficiently brings natural light into your interior spaces. But there are some times that we feel that maybe too much light could be a problem. Things like glare or just the overall experience of heat. So I guess filtration of natural light is the core importance, and I think it's best to understand the process from the panelist. Like again, I'm happy to be here, and I'm glad to get this started. Hirenji, starting from you. Okay, so I'll just explain the format to everybody. What we're going to be doing is we've asked all the panelists to get 5 slides, five pictures of their work that kind of represents how they've cultivated natural light into their project. And we are starting from one and move to the other, and that's how the whole format goes. And post that, we're happy to take questions from the viewers. So viewers, please start filling in your questions. There is a chat box where you can leave your questions. Hirenji, I'm a big fan of your work.
Thank you so much.
Where you use art and light and do the most simple, yet I'm sure it's the most complex way how you put things together. It is just such a it's something extremely beautiful to look at every time I look at your projects. So I'd like to start with you, Hirenji.
Okay. Yeah. Hi. Yeah. So thank you so much for inviting for this platform. Yes, it's another way of life, and we all are learning. But it's good to be in connect to see each other's work. And yes, it's about the natural light. And yes, can you go for the next slide, please? So, can you go to the next slide, please? Yeah. Okay. So, what is the natural light? Is like we all study architecture, and especially I study from Ahmedabad Sept University, where we have wonderful building by Lee Corbusier and Louis Kahn. And Louis Kahn's work with the light and architecture was always very. I mean, we have been taught in college, but unless and until you don't experience by yourself, you don't realize that. No, so that comes very slowly into. No, you never know that how come you start understanding. So it's not like one style of creating your work and playing with the light around and shadow and the dark and brightness. But slowly you realize the value of that natural thing which is available every day, and you somehow you ignore that, no, because you're not. It's easily available. No, so sometimes you lose that quality of understanding something very beautiful next to you, but it's every day there. So no, that's what, and especially before COVID, no, our life was very hectic, I would say, and we were all running around. And this lockdown has brought a lot of wisdom. I remember that I stay in. We have a nice house and a nice veranda where we have a little garden all around, which has a morning light getting into the veranda, which is covered with the glass. And virtually, we live in that veranda for maybe 2 months there. And what happened that suddenly you started realizing that, oh, that's the time for sunrise and that's the time for sunset. And you go out in the terrace and you literally watch the sunset, which is so beautiful, which we never did from our house. No, so this lockdown has brought lots of quality, especially you see that kind of the way natural light falls into landscaping. I mean, yes, I understand architecture is a very powerful volumes and structure is create a unique character with the light, but also the light quality falling into the landscaping is also very interesting. That you see the kind of the way the shadow pattern happens to your floor and kind of thing. So this is like one of the house. I mean, we have beautiful sunrise every day, and this is the house we designed somewhere where it's the idea is that you build small and have a bigger the garden. That was the concept, and the clients actually agreed upon that. And rather than building up too much, we have very compact house, and we come up with a larger garden. And can you go for the next slide, please?
Hirenji, that's
So
very rare. I think that you find clients saying that, yeah, let's use more landscape and less home.
absolutely. And look at this same image. This is the city of Ahmedabad, where no we say about that it's not like a Bangalore, or it's not climate is very harsh and kind of thing. But look at the kind we had. Luckily, we had a couple of existing native trees like neem trees and everything, and we convinced client that we will keep them as it is, and we'll build up the house which they agreed upon. And that's how the when the house has come up, and kind of surrounding was already built up, and obviously we added the further landscaping to that, and you can see the house behind, and dense kind of plantation next to that area, because we have behind the big glass of the bathroom shower, so we wanted to create the privacy, so by creating the landscaping. And the kind of the morning light falls into the things, I mean, its entire space becomes so dramatically beautiful that you start admiring. So we need to be calmed down, and when you sit for a cup of coffee in this pavilion, suddenly you admire the work of architecture, and you see the way light falls into the building. Yeah, next one, please. So I mean, we as a design, we love designing architecture, interior, and landscaping. Especially, we try to do the relation between that. So that's how we end up creating the houses or any kind of building which has a larger kind of opening and glasses. So it looks you have the relation from in to out. So that's become very important. We virtually live into the nature, and especially in the harsh climate, the challenge become is that how you control the light. So basically, we try to create kind of a landscaping in a such a way that which becomes kind of little covering to the harsh light, and you get the light and shadow happening within your house, and you get control in terms of the heat gain from the direct sun coming inside the volumes. But the because of that play of nature while plantation around, and the little light filtering through the those greenery makes things very dramatically. And throughout the day, there is a kind of play of the light, because every hour or every half an hour, the light condition changes, and the interior space become different and different. So that's how it's become very interesting to enjoy the space. Next one, please. So the same house you can again see in the morning the kind of way the light filters, and you see that light rays. I mean, this pictures brought me the childhood memory time of when we go to some village, where the roof is leaking and the lights penetrating from inside with this kind of rays of light. This just gives you that kind of feeling that it is filtering through the surrounding of green, and how beautiful it looks. Yeah, next one, please.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, and so that was like environment, but at the same time, the harsh light also makes something very interesting, because suddenly you start noticing what you have created as the architecture part in architecture or landscaping, or for example, this pavilion into the backside of the house with the swimming pool. I mean, what you realize enjoy the most is the kind of light, directly light falling into the blank wall and create the shadow pattern are happening, and that keeps on creating the different mood, because you have the water, so you see the reflection of the light also into the swimming pool, and now it's constantly keep on changing the evening time. I mean, these are things which have been discovered. Now, I would really say that now we have such a wonderful software that one can start thinking, maybe put a one day for their house or office you are designing, and just think of how the light will fall, because now we have all the software, and you can actually create kind of a beautiful end product with thinking of how to work with the lights. Next one, please. Yeah, so that's like we created one kind of office, and it's a completely surrounding with the garden. So it's basically glass cubes all around, and you have the floating roof, which is a free form, so it doesn't hurt to your eyes. But at the same time, no, Even though there was enough light, we wanted to create a central cutout because that cutout will change because you will suddenly start getting little punch of direct light coming into this big veranda. So I mean, there are. I mean, it's an n number of possibility once you start taking this very sensitive subject into your work. I think one can come up with a very interesting and new learning. Yeah, I think one. I have one more slide, most probably. Or this is the last. I'm not sure. Can you just check this last one? Yeah, this is a, yeah. So yeah, so what I said that the lighting in architecture as well, and especially we love working with the landscaping. So this is you can see the beautiful gulmo tree in the front of the house, and we have a artificial. I mean, we have created this natural lake with a full of lotus all around. And look at the kind of the sun falls down on the deck, and it's a visual treat to us. So light is a very interesting subject, and we enjoy working with the natural light as well as artificial light. Thank you so much.
Absolutely loved. I'm sure everybody is going to agree with all those images. They look like some dream.
Thank you so much.
It's the landscaping, the way you have taken landscape to just control light. Like you said, it's a very, very, very strong point. I also absolutely love the office. It's almost like working in a jungle, yet you're obviously. So I think you can't be having a better place like that. I would love
Right.
to have that kind of an office where your then the creativity flow, or I think just the workflow is going to be so great.
Yeah, and we also realized that particularly that office, no, because we have more open space like a veranda, like a home into office. That was an idea that if you have office, why can't we have a veranda, balcony in a home? Why can't we have the outdoor living space in office? And the clients end up doing meetings more outdoor rather than sitting inside. And now they say their biggest problem is people come for 15 minutes and they end up staying 1.5 hours because everybody loves the space so much that everybody become very calm and cool and no, I mean they just like to be there. So that's the fun. I mean, if you are with the nature all around, yeah.
Ankur, would you like to add something to this? I think you would totally
Yeah,
agree
yeah.
with.
I think the office space is just stunning. Hirenji, we are jealous in Mumbai. We don't have the luxury of so much space. So I'm going to
Yeah,
reserve my jealousy. But what I'm saying is Bombay is a bit of a challenge. It's beautiful
true.
work.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay. Moving forward, identifying optimal spaces and floor plates. Now, I'm talking more in architectural terms, and I know that when you're coming and deciding buildings and their shapes and the structure, and of course, understanding the light, and who else better than Amanji, who is going to basically let some light in. The way I have seen your work, Aman, and the way you create these voids and I would say like courtyards and just creating light coming through these voids that hit on the wall or on the surfaces and the interior spaces, like as if it's a art on its own. Art on its own. I think wonderful. I absolutely love that, and I think please share some presentation and give some light on what you do.
Taking this format of putting 5 slides and 5 projects, I thought we could do something about what light actually does, in the terms of both architecture and also what light could do to architecture. I think more than anything else. So that's what I would talk about. Next, please. So I picked up about what light could do. So these are the 5 things what I would talk about. Light builds, what light defies, what light could become, what light defines, and what light could create. Next, please. So light builds time. This is something that I've been reading and I've been following some architects who always talk about it. Uh, getting light from the sky, the purest light that you can get in the forms of rays of light that can actually move in spaces, is something that is um, it's always fascinated me. It's always been a part of, I think, some of the most enigmatic or monumental historic buildings that we've ever seen. uh, Movement of light inside a space is almost, it acts like a sundial, and you makes you aware of uh, at what time of the day you are in or what season you are in. Probably this awareness of light inside space is something that is an integral part of what we do. So that's how I talk about how light builds time. Next, light defies scale. This project that I talk about here and why I say light defies scale is something because this project is a really small project. The space is only about uh, 7.5 meters wide or 8 meters wide, and it was an extremely complex program in a very very small space. But the idea was that we got in so much natural light inside the space that it actually started defining the scale of the space. It's not about direct light in this case, but it's about a lot of translucent light coming in from lots of different angles, so that the entire space becomes like a light box more than anything else. Yet it's completely closed onto the street, but it becomes like a light box inside. So you really can't judge the scale of the space. So that I think is one of the effects of having light inside, or probably having the intensity or controlling the intensity of light inside your spaces. Next, please. Light becomes material. I think if we can sort of, if you look at this image, it's actually focused onto the courtyard, and it's all about translucent light, in which is like the entire space is almost evenly lit from an interior space. But if you notice this corner on the side, you get this amazing ray of light, and it's almost becomes like an object that's coming from the sky. This corner. So this is something that I think is most amazing, where you have translucent light and then you can get direct solid light coming inside a space. uh, it almost becomes like a material. Next, please. Light defines form. If you look at this image, it's almost like a blank white image. It's only because of that light that you realize this space is actually it's almost like a circular space or an oblong space. It's this beautiful quality of light that you can see things in almost two dimension. When you see things and you realize, okay, it's because of the light that you realize, or because of the sciography that you realize that actually the space is not like a two-dimensional space. It has a form. So I think light sometimes plays a very interesting role of defining the form. It's actually very close to what Corbusier used to always talk about. So uh, this is from a residence. It's a temple of a residence that we are talked about. Again, it's the light from the sky that almost defines the form of this temple. Next, please. This is the last slide, and this here I talk about how light creates experience. Um, More than experiential quality in architecture, I think what light does is that it creates a variety in architecture. This space is a very complex space. It looks very complex. It is very complex when you experience it, but actually it's a very simple plan designed very, very simply. And I have a small video which shows how the light keeps on moving around in this space, and at different times of the day or at different um, um, times of the year, how light completely changes this space. Next, can you play the video, please?
I think what you experience in your early stage, in your early life, is something that's so deeply imbibed in your sensibilities that it can never just
Yes,
go
so the
away.
audio is not coming through.
Being in Chandigarh is like being at the mecca of one of the masters.
The audio is not coming through in
I
the
think
video.
the deep sense of
Being in Chandigarh, it's like something that's just deeply imbibed into our thought process itself.
Great. Okay, moving forward, we're now moving to a little bit more into interiors and daylight in the interiors in your home is a sure way to bring some freshness. Of course, there is energy saving, there is all of the benefits that you may think of, but I think it brings in a lot more. And I want to know from Ankur ma'am, what does sunlight really bring in your home apart from energy saving? What else do you feel so strongly? And I love the way there's one image I think I pull out if I could from Instagram of it's a filtration of light that you've created on a wall with a sculpture and art. I think that I hope that's there as a presentation, but it's beautiful.
Should I show you?
I should have told you, but yeah, that I mean the kind of that's magic. It's and of course captured fantastically, and I'm sure that just that corner can get so exciting with light coming in. Of course, you've done the decor and the elements stand out more. Please, ma'am, you can take over and we can do the five images with you.
Sure. I think it was a challenge. I think it was a challenge putting the 5 slides because there's so much you want to say and communicate. Next. So I'm going to run it swiftly. And I think the connotation of light for me and for the very earliest, it's been like Fia lux, which meant in the Bible, and it's got a very spiritual and one where it connects you more to your inner self or your soul. And I think that's how architecturally we've always had the most beautiful architecture wherein the spiritual angle, like even how Aman shared, I think when light pours in, it kind of touches your soul. And I think that's what the architectural element can, totally transport you to a different experience. So, like Poonam mentioned, we oscillate from different genres of work and in a different city. So this is a project which we have done in Bangalore. And like Hirenji and Aman, who have beautiful spaces to work in Chandigarh and Ahmedabad, we have a challenge working in different cities. But even Mumbai is one that throws us with limited spaces and the challenge to bring in natural light. Next. So how, what we're really talking is typology as an architecture allowing for light to filter through skylights, or how we can play with medium in terms of roofing and we work with terracotta roofings and under tiles to create certain grids for bringing in light in. And that was one of our exploration. What we're trying to show is our varied projects that we've worked on to show how light is something that we tried to capture, tried to kind of create as an experience in terms of whether you enter a project or you spend time, in a certain foyer area before you move into the several spaces or your rooms. So next. And this was one of the courtyards that we created for a building complex. And the idea in this space was that traditionally in India, we had this concept of courtyard. The Romans, actually, the idea is also there in the Roman patio houses. And that's where the idea and the word of atrium really percolated down in our language. And since it was a challenging area in which we had to kind of position for vertical structural towers to accommodate the apartments, we created a sort of an atrium and a courtyard to allow natural light to filter into the space. Next. So moving to another typology, when you are challenged with allowing natural light to come in a space like a house where you could kind of explore with the windows and the size of the openings, we had this ability to kind of use the double height volume and draw in light through the terrace space and allow the light to filter in into this huge volume. So the first slide had a staircase which architecturally allowed for slits and apertures to throw light in. This one is showing our other exploration of how to volumetrically allow light to come in to a space. And we use the circulation space as one dynamic with art and allowing for the play of light and structure in the same volume. Next. This one was really to explore challenge. The idea is that in Mumbai, we have a part with a 3-floor structure. And since it was ensconced in an apartment building, we tried to use the same circulation space, which we wanted to allow for light to filter in. We created a railing, which kind of play of form and structure, and allowed for that to be element of a representation of the apertures that were placed along the walls. So we created apertures on the walls and screens above, and then we kind of transpire that into our staircase railing. And the idea was that we wanted much more natural light to filter into a space like this, which was for circulation. But if you really notice, we've also put in images which shows daylight linking, wherein you do have the challenge of also working with natural light and allowing a bit of infiltration of artificial light into the same space. So the idea was to create a different experience in the same space, which could have been flushed with natural light, or it could have just a shaft of natural light. So I think what we're trying to also show is 3 different experiences of circulation and how we've addressed it based on the typology of the project and the structure that we have kind of inherited in this case. Next. So another challenge, which is in often things we do face, where they're completely glazed, and you saw that the working temperature of light is apt, and that you provide insufficient light. And like you mentioned, Poonam, glare is something that you really want to control. So how we've created light, and we've added color and the use of various color glasses to create an experience, and the magic of light is what then showcases in this project. So I would have loved to show much more images, but Poonam has encompassed us into a smaller package, and I hope I've been able to just communicate the different typologies of the way we've handled design and light in our spaces. And the next time I'm sorry, next time I should put the image which is stuck in your
yes,
memory.
I'm going to send it to you. I'm going to screenshot and send it to you.
No, we'll probably figure it out and share it on the screen.
I would like to say, I know you feel it's short, but these 5 slides have been absolutely powerful. So I think there's so much to absorb from Hiren to, it's amazing the dynamic of work that I've been seeing, and I'm so glad I got this opportunity, because I'm full 100% focused, and it's amazing to learn from all of you. Annkur, I absolutely love that one slide where you merged artificial light with natural light, and I think with interiors, and because I do interiors, I understand that we're always kind of, especially when you're doing apartments, there's only probably one side, you only get windows and glazing on one side, and that's about it. So how to kind of merge both, and it's fantastic that railing and the detailing that you've done is just too good.
I'm sorry. So how to merge?
No, I'm saying. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah. Sorry,
yeah, I was saying it's amazing how you've merged artificial light with natural light, and that's
so much, Poonam.
Yes, moving forward, Xavier, Javier, I'm I'm really bad with this. Okay. When you photograph, I think there is a different challenge that must be facing with the quality of light. Sometimes when it's too harsh, the light could be too harsh on, and for the camera, it may be like sometimes it's overexposed or underexposed depending on the light. So how do you struggle with this? And I agree. I mean, you just said it. It's the passion and the love for what you do, and that's how you create magic. But give us some light on the timing, or give us some idea of what you do, and of course, please share your presentation, and we love to see what you have in store.
Sure. So I would say I work in somehow in two ways. In the sense I work for me and I work for the architect. So most of what I do usually has to do with what the architect has to tell and what his ideas were in the project. That's how you choose what's the right way to represent them. So images are also built as architecture. You build images that are able to communicate ideas, architectonic ideas behind, and then there's also this side where I'm sensible to some specifics of it, no further than the communication of the project. No, anyway, what I wanted to propose you today, talking about light, is like a little selection of projects on which I've worked that have an importance in the kind of use they do of natural light. So I would start by mentioning Campo Baeza, who's a master I have the chance to work with here in Spain. I hope you know him. It's really worth. So he says natural light is the most luxurious material we have to work with in architecture, and it happens to be free. So it's something we really have to do with, no? And it gives great opportunities for architecture, no? And he separates the types of light basically in two ways, no? Like there's clarity, there's diffuse light, which has to do more with the transparency, the possible transparency, and the continuous space that might remind us of Mies van der Rohe. And then there's solid light that might have to do more with tension, with drama, with accentuation, that might have to do a little bit more with what we might remember of Le Corbusier. Also, it comes to mind the Pantheon, the masterpiece. So here we have a couple of images that have to do with, like three images on the left might have to do with this idea of diffuse light, continuous, about transparency. And then the one on the right has a little bit more to do with light as a solid material that enters the space, tenses it, accentuates, and talks also about time, about cycles. Can we go ahead with the next? So I think next is a video of this atrium, which is the headquarters for a bank, and all the offices happen to work around this atrium. This project was called Impluvium of Light, like light raining, and as you can see, it's mainly inspired by the Pantheon in Rome. What I can tell you that we might not see here in the project is that you really have a strong emotional feeling when you enter that space, not only because of how light behaves, but also because of the size of it, the space, and how you can like really see the light move. If you approach the wall, you're gonna see the sun moving, no, because of the sizes of all of it. And then there's a game of filtering, of translucent materials. Can we go to the next image, please? So I had the chance to photograph for one of the best young architects in India, who happens to be here with us. and I wanted to show this skilled use of natural light by Aman Aggarwal on this project that he showed before. So he showed the same image, and I found it really skilled how he generates this tension between a diffuse light that is coming from the bottom of the space, and then the solid light coming from the top that filters through these pathways, generating this tension that accentuates on my side the verticality of the space, but also makes it remain calm at the same time. I think it's a wonderful use of natural light to generate this, to use it as a quality, as a luxurious material on the inside of a building that otherwise is a very it's not expensive building. So it's a wonderful spatial experience because of that skilled use of natural light, which is free. No, can we go to next? I wanted to show you this project as well, which is the Wall House by Anupama Kundo in Oroville. So these images make part of the exhibition that's taking place in Louisiana, in Copenhagen right now. And I wanted to show you, this house is very interesting as it is an experiment, no? So at the time she was working with this ferro cement wall that can open and move. And I wanted just to show you this little effect, which is amazing. It's a show of light. When the sun sets in that house, you have this wonderful event of light moving through the house in little circles that redefines everything and makes you understand the space completely otherwise. It's a wonderful experience sitting there and watching the sun go down in the evening. No, next image, please. There's another idea that I wanted to bring, which is this phenomenological behavior of light. Like this, we're not talking about an interior here. We're just talking about the control of the quality of the material, so that the position of the sun might generate a completely different behavior of these facades. So this project, which was shot in Italy by a studio called Jessa, is a beautiful work on the level of reflection and transparency of a plastic material in the facade that makes the building kind of be alive the whole day. There's an evolution in the behavior of the building because of that control and care in how light behaves and reflects. No? Next, please. Another project that I found interesting and that has to do probably with this very common idea in Indian architecture. For example, in the family, the houses for big families, there's always this space, like an atrium, like a meeting space. It doesn't happen that often in Europe, but in this case, this was an office space that had this generous atrium for the offices that happen to be around, but we cannot see them. So what I wanted to mention here is the aspect of the color of the light. So these cuttings out of the marble in every angle, they are, if we see the image on the left, the one on the left is east, the one on the right is west, and then the one in the center is south. So the light is warm in the south, and then it's cold on both sides. But it changes during the day. No, as you have the direct sun hitting each of them, it becomes warmer, and the other are lightened by the sky, which is blue, and they are colder. No, so there's also these subtleties of the behavior of the light cycle during the day that I find to be beautiful. No, like it's not always so evident. It's sometimes very subtle how you can use it. No, next slide, please. Another project which was basically about having the natural light go in this museum through alabaster. I really found interesting this idea of having light happen to come from stone. No, not only that, but because this kind of space might have humidity problems, alabaster helps have the air flowing dry out. So it's like a perfect system where you have a beautiful light that gives the scale to the space and gives a sense of warmth, but then it also has another function, no, working like that. I really like this idea of having a light become material somehow, no? And then the last image, please. No, there's two more. This is another project by Campo Baeza in Mexico that was a little bit inspired by Barragan, by Luis Barragan, and it's a house where the idea, the system is to have a double section that opens to the south to have the light come in and hit a golden wall and then reflect the interior. So I went to photograph in summer. At that time, we had the light coming through vertically down to the bottom, which is the image on the left, and we have kind of a colder atmosphere. But then when I went again in winter to have the effect that we wanted, which was the light coming in and reflecting in the golden wall, you can see in winter it becomes warmer, because the light is actually hitting the golden wall and then reflecting to the rest. And then the last image, and that's a beautiful project by another Indian architect, Ganesh Bala, who works basically in Oroville. And that's a house. And I am kind of sorry that I had to show the image on the right that kind of explains the effect, but I would very much like you to watch only the image on the left. No, I think that one is probably close. Like the one on the right explains the mechanism, because you understand what's going on. The one on the left is very much more about the effect, this beautiful emotional space at the entering of a house, where you have these little openings that happen to have this entrance changing during the day, no? With this movement of we would say like it's somehow like night and day effect in that section, and it's simply done by skilled design and control of natural light, no? So that's it.
That's a perfect yin and yang photograph, I think. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I mean, one thing that you said, that natural light is the most luxurious thing that we can have, and I think it comes free. So let's use it wisely and use it a lot. Okay, moving forward, we want to move from a quick Q&A, and I want you all to debate over this topic. And I feel there are a few things that sometimes I also struggle when we talk about something called too much light. I mean, too much light is also too good a thing sometimes. Like, what happens when it's too warm, when you're doing, especially when you're doing architecture for bungalows, Hirenji, and there is, you're working with strict summers and cold winters. How do you play with your glazing? Do you kind of have technology? You use something to give that kind of, like the sunlight can probably be filtered during the summers and during the winters. How do you kind of use technology to your benefit?
Yeah, especially when you are designing some spaces and you want to have a relation with the outside, you end up creating the large volumes, large openings, and then you control through the glass panels or maybe windows, fixed windows or like that. So yes, especially the climate where we work most is like Ahmedabad, and it's quite hot, dry and hot. So definitely it's in terms of the heat, it creates issues, and I'm still learning on that, frankly speaking. See, basically we have four directions, like east, west, north, and south. North works fantastically because it has indirect light, so you can completely go with the big kind of opening without having any overhangs because you get the indirect light. East also was fairly good that you get the morning light which you prefer to get in, and eventually the sun goes up and you don't have light. But west and south become absolutely tough. And that's why most of the people try to block the south and west to control the heat. And that's how we lose the beautiful sun coming from the south, and especially we also from the west in the evening. So what I also learned a long time before that, Charles Correa said that it's always good for our climate to make the thin wall rather than thick walls. That was surprisingly because we were always thinking that thick wall will save the heat to get in. But he said that in harsh climate like western part of India, you have so much of heat that if you come with let's say blocking the through the thick stone wall something like that, it's eventually become a storage of heat, and it keeps on penetrating throughout the day, even including the nights. So it's the best thing is a tin roof kind of a shelter where it's get heated up, but by the evening it's also get cooled down. And then once it get heated up, how you control? So you create a large veranda, and that's what. So that's what we learned that in the south and west, if you create a real large veranda means 10 feet, 15 feet depth kind of space. So you have like what we have the British structures all over country. So if you have the veranda all around, and then it works fantastically. We have all beautiful houses of our traditional houses also with having lots of veranda, all especially South India. They have wonderful big verandas on the west side and south side. So even though you have the nice open field, you get the light in, but it's get controlled with the heat. So that's what is the thing. But still, I am struggling because giving that large volume of veranda, we don't have a luxury for every project because you require so much space, so much of money and everything. Especially if you're designing the tight buildings and tight spaces, it's become tough. So we try to filter through or cover through the dense plantation towards the south and west. But still, yeah, it's still ongoing process. I'm not 100% proof of controlling the heating through the house.
You're just being very humble, sir. I think also where you have, like you just said in the first few in the pictures, you mentioned how you've used landscape. So I guess like how you've used a lot of plantation, and that kind of filters also is fantastic when you do a bungalow project.
That's true. Yeah.
Would anybody want to add to this? Aman, would you like to add something? Technology helping us filter light.
Well, I think if you look at it historically, we Indians always used to do sustainable architecture. We never used any specific technologies as to do it. It was just the way we used to orient our buildings and the scale of openings was good enough for us to understand what we wanted to do. Obviously, we did have those screens with jalis and all those things, but I don't think you should create a problem by opening large, having large glazings to the south and then trying to do some technological solutions to sort of, cut down the heat or do all those kind of things. I think if you can just simply control the amount of light or control the scale of our openings properly, I don't think we need really any technology to do that.
Ankur, would you like to add?
So I agree. I think there are two genres in architecture in terms of where you can control the space. That is something like how Aman was saying, we can address it through architecture. I think interior wise, if you have inherited a space where you have a certain limitation to it, then you could use technology to your advantage in terms of whether it is through automation or through sunshades, which can be controlled via automation, or through daylight sensors, which control the amount of light that comes in. But I think that is when you're addressing an architecture which needs a solution. And many of the new age corporate buildings was something which were designed with entire glazing all around, where you notice that managing light as well as using it efficiently to create an ambient and a very productive workspace was something that we felt technology could really aid.
I think, like you just said, sometimes when you're doing, especially when you're designing offices, the glare and also the AC air conditioning efficiency, all of that kind of impacts. So I think that time you really need to use technology to kind of understand what side of the office is and what east facing or south facing it is, and what time does the light come in, and just kind of understanding that and giving that solution to the client. I think that is just so that the experience of being inside also and getting the most of the natural light is played along.
Sure.
Would anybody like to add, or can I punch my next question?
Sure, move. Do we?
Okay. Understanding the fact that today, more so after COVID, I think we've all realized how much important it is in today's design philosophy, natural light. And we're talking about natural light. How does natural light accentuate other elements? I mean, how much more focus should we all keep as a community, so that the future just I mean, the importance should be given to natural light, and how you feel that it's probably taken advantage of. Can we start with Javier? What do you think?
I didn't hear you well this time. Sorry.
Sorry, I'll just repeat. So I'm saying, with understanding the importance of positivity and post-COVID, I mean, the fact that we realize how much natural light is important in today's design philosophy, how does the natural light accentuate with other design elements, and what do you think should be the way forward for us as a community to, put forward and kind of work together?
Well, I think there's an added value. I'm not sure if we mentioned, but somehow we are happier animals if we are in a better relation with natural light. I mean, I think there's this huge opportunity to give back importance to the landscape somehow, to the nature, and light might be a way of doing it. No, having a more generous approach to it, and probably more emotional. It has to do with our life cycles. And the cycles also during the year, no. So I think there's a beauty in that. I'm sorry, I probably propose like a more aesthetic position here, like less related to design. But I really think that we need to count on what's already there. Instead of trying to work with lighting technologies we might not really need, no? Like the show is already out there, and it's beautiful,
and it's free, so we should.
Yeah, I have one of my experience to share. No, especially the light, natural light, as Javier said about, we become very happy with the natural light, and especially in the offices, workspace, and especially where the corporate world, where they count every inch of the square feet spaces, and they want to fit more and more and more people, especially in IT and any kind of corporate world. What happened that people end up sitting in very tight spaces, and you don't get the light. And what we realized, that we were working on one project where, let's say, it was a typical building with we were on the 8th floor. And roughly, it was a total floor plate of that building would be around 10,000 square feet. So we had a half. So what happened that you have three side glass, nice views, and in center you have the common wall because you have the adjoining office there. So while we were designing, what happened? The best view will go in terms of hierarchy, especially in India, that they want to give it to the most beautiful view to their bosses and the senior people. So what generally happens that along the windows you end up putting the cabins, and the general staff, they are working whole day from morning night to maybe middle of the night or late evening. They are inside with completely artificial light. And to our surprise, when we study that, we realize that most of the bosses, they are traveling across the country. So half of the time those cabins are empty. So we completely went opposite with the client, and we said the bosses will sit inside and the staff will sit on the best view. And they were even initially not agree, and we said that is how you will get entire light into things, because the general staff has a common open kind of working space. They don't have compartment. Through their working areas, you will get the light deep inside the cabins, and everybody will see the day and night. And we created an office. It has become so fantastic, and I can tell you that people started enjoying so much because of having light, and they can see now the sunrise and sunset and kind of space, and people started coming early morning because it's the most beautiful time in the morning. And that's how. And suddenly you started seeing the people started putting small bottle with the money plant, because they got the light there. So there was life even happening in their workplace. So it's very right that lights become especially very, very important, especially when in working space.
Fantastic. That's very well. I think I have myself probably designed a project where the cabins were all given to the bosses and the rest of the spaces, the workstation. That's I think one needs to kind of break open all of that and think more. Okay, so I think we're already running short of time, guys. We have one question from the viewers. Can I just take that?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Please.
How can we integrate our built up with nature and bring outside to inside with the help of natural light? Rida Drabu. Should I repeat the question, or?
I think the best answer can be given by the architect and the photographer. He knows the light much more than we all of us.
So
yeah, you could be the right person to answer. Yeah.
I would say that it's not only the relation through light, but through vision. Like architecture has a lot of mechanisms to bring the outside inside. There's a lot of skills to make that work. But basically, by underlining or framing what you want to have inside, it happens to come inside. So there's this thing about the control of the scale and the deepness, and then you can also go to the point where you go look for the outside from the inside. Like you can position yourself out there. So it's also about the membrane, the limit, the skin. Is there really a limitation? So actually, in India, I think it might happen very often that you don't really need to have glazing, neither. In some areas, atmospheric or comfort control doesn't force separating. For example, when I work in Oroville, most of the spaces are a mosquito limit, nothing more.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So you have great opportunities in India to do in many different ways. I'm sure Aman has an interesting vision as well.
I think it's integrating nature is not just about natural light. It's also about integrating all the other aspects. Light, I think, is something that is about your visual sense, but I think also when you integrate nature, you allow the other senses to be sort of in sync. And like how we were saying, we are happier animals, not just with natural light, but also when we are in contact with nature. It's like the experience that you have walking on probably a beach sand or feeling the air on top of a mountain. It's basically because your experience with nature. So it's not just about light. I think that's one. And the other thing is that the I think the amorphous character, or this space, not just through a wall, but through actually a transcendent space, is something that's so deeply a part of Eastern spatial planning that I always talk about. It's a space between the inside and the outside is somewhere that becomes the most important space. It's the veranda that is like the most important space. So
Yeah.
that, I think, those transcendent spaces between the inside and outside, or the spaces that don't really have a function, is somehow in with our budgets or with spatial constraints, is those spaces are the first targets of, I would say, you know economical aspirations. So I think if we can sort of control those spaces and make them an integral part of what we do, and the way we design our buildings, uh, is I think the solution to this integration that you talk about.
Yeah. Truly, I mean, if you don't have to downsize these balconies and just give larger spaces of outdoor as much as we give it to the apartments, I think that is should be the future for a better environment altogether. So we have one more question. It's just down here. It's what are the factors which affect the natural light? Very generic question, but someone would like to take it. Uncle, would you like to do this?
I think maybe Shivraj. I think Shivraj could be a little more throw in more light as to factors which affect natural light in terms of inner space, which is architecturally driven or interior driven. Because light itself is something which is so transient in terms of the way it moves around a space. I mean, natural light is affected with seasons, with with the it's so transient. It changes with location, like how right from the northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere of India. Even we've seen that how light you know behaves, and the quality of light in these two parts of India itself varies. So it has several factors. I think how you harness light is very important. So if you have, I think what we really need to awake ourselves is to sustainability. If we are able to harness natural light and use solar technology to take to harvest it, to use it, put it to good use, because we are in a tropical country, and we should design mediums. So even in our forthcoming and in our bungalow projects which we've done, we've tried to make use of solar technology to integrate and to put good use to the natural light that is coming. And then you can, even though it has the transient quality, you are putting it to good use and making the entire environment more sustainable, and you want to be eco-friendly. I think it's a wake-up call for all of us.